21.
The UK is fighting a tidal wave of romance fraud.
In the last year alone, almost 10,000 cases have been reported to the police.
It's a hugely harmful crime which can be devastating emotionally and financially, with the economic cost to the UK last year close to £100 million.
It doesn't matter if you're old or young, a man or a woman. It could happen to anyone.
The man you've been speaking to is not real.
I loved him so much.
And we are back to expose the lies and manipulation behind these heartless scammers.
We'll be uncovering the tactics of the criminals behind the scams.
It's set up to trap someone.
And as ever, we'll have everything you need to know to make sure you and your money stay safe.
Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?
Coming up, how a transatlantic romance saw this man tricked out of over £50,000.
As the relationship sort of developed, I saw him more as a soulmate.
And the scammer who won't accept the truth.
You've stolen money from an innocent man.
I did it. What you're accusing me is wrong.
We've been contacted by a man called Norman. Now, he's in a relationship with someone called Michael, but he's beginning to have some suspicions. Here's a bit of his story.
His personality was something that really appealed to me. He always seemed to me to be genuine, somebody who I could form a relationship with. He then had a believable story about gold being left to him that had to be acquired from the safety deposit box company, and there was outstanding costs involved. So I paid to be able to get this done. I contacted my bank to tell them that a large sum of money has been paid into the account, and they said it is basically a scam. But there is a little portion of me that believes that his story could be true.
I tell you, any time I hear about gold,
I know.
I'm suspicious.
I know.
But I'm going to investigate. I'm going to have an open mind.
Whilst Ashley gets busy with the paperwork, Norman's travelled from Lincolnshire to meet me and tell me all about Michael.
Hi, Norman.
Hi, Kim.
Thank you for meeting with me today.
That's okay.
After coming out of a relationship with a long-term partner in 2018, 67-year-old retired council manager Norman was looking for his soulmate.
So what did you do? You joined a dating website, is that right?
Well, I actually tried to get a social group for gay men going in Lincolnshire when I moved there.
Without much success locally, Norman decided to join a well-known LGBTQ dating website. It wasn't long before Norman welcomed new member Michael Chambers to his social group on the site. Michael told him he was a 28-year-old mature student living in Canada.
Were you at that point then looking for a relationship?
It was something I felt was needed in my life. And going into the pandemic, I thought, well, I'm not going to be in a position to actually meet anybody.
With uncertain times ahead, Norman was keen to get involved with Michael. The couple connected and their relationship started to progress.
I realised that, yeah, I really like this guy. We were sort of clicking. As the relationship sort of developed, I saw him more as a sort of soulmate.
Okay.
And it seems the feeling was mutual. As Michael told Norman he was planning to move to the UK after his graduation so the couple could plan a future together.
So I often used to tell him about episodes of Gogglebox, and he really enjoyed what I was reciting to him as to what I'd watched. And he was saying, oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing Gogglebox when I come over to the UK.
With so much to look forward to, what happened next came as a bit of a surprise to Norman.
He suddenly said, I've been having a few problems trying to get some money together to pay the final year's fees for his university course. He pulled at my heartstrings. He used all the usual, "No, don't you love me anymore?"
It was almost like emotional blackmail kind of technique.
Norman eventually agreed to send Michael £1,000 to cover the remainder of his final year university fees. Michael then sent Norman a receipt for the fees from the University of Ottawa. Believing his intentions were genuine, Norman then continued to cover Michael's student accommodation costs. Very quickly, Norman had sent Michael over £4,000. Around this time, Michael confided in Norman that his parents separated when he was young, at which point he'd moved with his mother from the US to Canada, and his Swedish father had sadly died.
I was on the phone to him and he said there's been a knock at the door. It's his family attorney from the United States who'd come specially to see him to deliver him some good news. He told me that the good news is that before he died, his father had put a sum of $1.5 million in gold into a deposit box and written a will naming him as the only beneficiary because it was his only son.
Whilst Kim gets to the bottom of Norman and Michael's story, what's caught my interest is the fact that Norman is helping to pay Michael's university fees. This isn't something that we've seen before, so could it be legitimate?
Norman's received an invoice from Michael that Michael says is from the university that he says he goes to. I'm going to look into it. It's called Telford University, so let's see what comes up. Okay, so it is a real university. It seems to be a business school located in Canada.
The university is based in the Canadian capital, Ottawa. So far, so good for Norman and Michael's relationship.
I think what I need to do now is email them, get in touch, and see what they have to say about the invoice.
Whilst I wait for a response from the university, there's more details on the invoice I need to look into.
On this university invoice is an address for Michael, so I'm going to look into this and see if it's real, and if it is, who lives there. I've looked up that address on a street map, and it has taken me to a commercial block of offices. So clearly, this isn't student accommodation. It's no form of accommodation, so it would be impossible for Michael to live here.
Despite the university being legit, the address clearly isn't. Is Michael's story already beginning to unravel?
Michael has also sent Norman a passport, which I'm going to reverse image search to see what we can find.
A reverse image search allows me to scour the web to see if anything from a photo or document we've received has been used elsewhere on the internet. Worryingly, another passport crops up with almost exactly the same number at the bottom. Each passport is supposed to have a unique number. So these similarities suggest Michael's passport is a copy of this one and has been doctored in order to fool Norman.
So clearly things are not adding up here. It's a red flag, and it suggests that a scammer could be behind this passport sent by Michael.
And there's something else suspect about this passport.
Not only is the number the same, but both passports have the name Tanya. There are so many details on Michael's passport that are dubious and just not adding up. My guess is that a scammer's behind this passport.
Michael had told Norman that he was in line for a huge family inheritance, over $1.5 million worth of gold. But Michael needed help covering fees for the gold's release. In order to get his hands on the gold, Michael would need to pay £4,000, and he asked Norman for help.
The attorney contacted me because Michael had told him I'd been able to provide him with some financial resource.
Soon after, Norman agreed to pay the money. Michael's lawyer, Mark August, sent Norman a copy of Michael's father's will.
I believed it to be a true document, and it sort of backed up his story.
And I guess, you know, he's backing up his stories all the time.
Yes.
This is what I need it for, here's the proof, this is what, you know, passports and everything else.
With everything appearing to be above board, Michael gave Norman instructions as to how the £4,000 to release the gold should be transferred.
Michael provided me with the name and the account details of a friend of his. And the idea was that he would then go with the person to pick the money up, and he'd have the cash to pay it to the deposit box company.
By this point, Norman had given Michael a total of £8,000. But there were more costs to come.
The gold had to be melted down, impurities taken out of it, and then reconstituted in gold bars so that the assay office could confirm the purity of the gold, and that way you get the best possible price on the American gold market.
OK.
Norman paid another £2,500 to cover the cost of melting the gold, along with additional admin fees. Norman was sent these images as proof the gold melting process was ongoing.
The next stage was to get hold of an escrow. It's somebody who acts as a middle person between a buyer and a seller. The escrow had to be paid, and the value of the gold had grown to $18.3 million.
Wow. So at the end of all of that process, how much do you think you had parted with?
I know the total amount, and it was over £50,000.
£50,000 is a lot of money.
It is, yeah. Some of it was savings, some of it was loans. Ultimately, I took out another mortgage on my house, and that helped me provide him with the money.
But it was when he went to recover some of his money that the doubts began to set in for Norman.
At what point, then, did alarm bells ring for you?
The escrow guy sent the proceeds of the sale of the gold to a bank account. I was sent a link to the bank account. It registered that there was $18 million. In that account, I sent $60,000 to myself, which was just to pay me back for all the money I'd sent to him. Then, at the insistence of Michael, I then sent $6 million to my bank account. Because of such a large sum of money coming to my personal bank account, I rang my bank up and told them about it. They immediately said, "This is a scam."
Norman is now coming to terms with the idea that the man he loved has broken his heart and his bank balance.
So what's going through your head?
How could Michael do this to me? And how could I be so stupid? Because I used to be a professional manager in local government. If we weren't in the pandemic, I would have made sure I went to America and met Michael and made sure he was genuine.
Did you confront him?
I rang him.
Yeah.
And he burst into tears. And he does reckon to this day that he is the one that's been scammed.
Michael is adamant that he's been scammed as well, and told Norman that some of the money that he sent for the escrow was frozen by the recipient bank on suspicion of fraud. He sent Norman this recording of him supposedly on the phone to the bank, trying to release his partner's funds.
So that money that you speak of, it will go back to the sender.
That's Norman.
So that will go back eventually.
Okay, when?
But
that's what we're calling him, because he needs his money back so we can send it to another bank or whatever.
if he's already spoken to the fraud department, then they'll get the funds back into whatever account it came from in about 7 or 10 business days.
But despite Michael's repeated attempts to reassure him, Norman's not convinced.
Is it just the money that bothers you?
The silly thing is, I really got on well with him. Because I saw him as a soulmate, it really adds insult to injury. There's 5% of me that thinks that maybe he is Michael, and that maybe he is as he appears in the photograph.
What would you like us to do?
To see what you can find out about the photographs that I have of Michael, whether they are accurate.
I mean, we can't promise anything, but I'll go and see what I can find out.
The one thing that really struck me this time is how lonely he seemed to be at the point when all this was happening in his life. And I think one thing that we're seeing quite a lot of now is just how the pandemic has impacted people being lonely.
I've already got my suspicions about Michael. His passport's a suspect, and I doubt he's a student at the university he claims to be. He sent Norman this will from his late father to prove his inheritance of over £1 million. It sounds too good to be true, so I've come to see solicitor and fraud expert Aaron Chauhan to see if he can shed some light on it.
Aaron, great to meet you. How you doing?
I'm good. It's good to see you, Ash.
So Aaron, Norman was sent a last will and testament of his partner Michael's father. Can you just take a look and tell me about any red flags that you can see?
They talk in this document about some organisations. They talk about the Queen Securities Logistics Vault. They talk about the Royal Trust Chamber. So you could go and check that out. And we've had a search. They don't exist.
Really?
Yeah, it's all thin air. The person who should verify it, Mark August, well, this is 30 years ago. Who's around to verify it now? This is where we've got the internet. We've got search engines. We can go and look if an organisation exists, if a person exists, if a law that's been quoted exists. And if any of those things come back and it's not sure, well, you need to go further, but don't accept it at face value.
But if I'm given this by someone that I think I trust, I may not Google other bits of detail that clearly will show me the truth.
No, and I suppose that's the message we're trying to send out. Sometimes someone will send you a document and it's exactly what it says on the tin. You know, it is what it's meant to be. On occasion, it's going to be a scammer, and we want to stop that, and that's why they want to check.
Whilst Ashley gets to grips with the facts in Norman's case, I was struck by how much Michael had used the pandemic to play on Norman's vulnerabilities. So I've come to see psychotherapist Lahani Noor to learn more about how scammers can spot those vulnerabilities and use them against us.
So what character traits then do scammers look for when it comes to their victims? What character traits do they play on?
Vulnerability is such a key ingredient. It's the thing that the scammer attaches to. They notice it, they attach to it, and they feed on it. So the victim needs to have a level of vulnerability, and that vulnerability can be made up of all sorts of fears, fears of abandonment, fears of loss, fears of being on their own. So the scammer will notice that and draw it to the forefront of their liaisons with the victim.
Part of Norman's vulnerability was not only his need for companionship, but also his hope to see some of his money return. Something he believed could happen, in part due to this voice note Michael sent Norman of him on the phone to the bank.
So this is a voice note that one of the people we're talking to was sent in order to back up the story that he was being told. Let's have a listen.
So that money that you speak of, it will go back to the sender.
That's Norman.
So that will go back eventually.
Okay, when? That's what we're calling him, because he needs his money back so we can send it to another bank or whatever.
So what do you make of that?
I think if you wanted to believe that somebody was trying to get your money back, then you would take that as evidence.
Yeah, of course.
But if you were grounded in reality, that would mean nothing to you at all.
It's time for Norman to hear the truth.
Starting with the passport Michael sent to Norman to verify his identity.
If you look at that signature, you can see that it says Mike. Our experts say that you should expect to see a surname and a passport signature.
Okay.
We found an image of this passport online. I'm going to show it to you now.
Okay.
It's almost identical to Michael's, but there are some differences.
Right.
First of all, as you see, this person is a woman. There's an F for female, as you can see where it designates the gender. If you look at Michael's passport, you will see that M has a bit of a white blur behind it, suggesting that that M has been edited on this passport.
Right.
If you look at the bottom, you will see the name Tanya. So someone has made a bit of an error there because they haven't edited the name Michael on.
And sadly for Norman, the evidence only gets more damning.
Michael has emailed you and his name is not spelt correctly. Michael is spelt A-E-L, but if you look at that email, what can you see? E-A-L.
Yes, yes.
Of course. He's getting his own name wrong.
Yes.
We think there's a scammer behind this. We think it's someone here making up a story to try and dupe you.
And it was more of the same when we contacted TEFLA University in Ottawa to ask them about the tuition fees invoice that Michael had sent to Norman.
Well, they say very plainly, this is fake. We would never issue a tuition receipt. The address of the invoice, to my knowledge, isn't even university property.
Oh, right.
Michael told Norman that his father had passed away some years earlier, and that, as part of his inheritance, once he reached a certain age, he would receive a large sum of money through gold. However, my investigations have shown that if Norman examined this will a little more closely, then he may have been able to hold on to his money.
The will mentions organisations, as you can see. I'm sorry to say, but those organisations do not exist. As well as that, the monetary value wouldn't be in US dollars. That just wouldn't be the case on a Swedish will. So, based on those bits of information, we believe this document is fake.
Yep.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm sort of more convinced than ever that I've been had. A very convincing liar and actor has spent a lot of time in my company. I telephone calls sometimes twice a day. Somebody who I thought I had a good relationship with has effectively stolen a huge sum of money from me.
To make Norman part with his cash, Michael came up with the story that the gold that he'd inherited from his father needed to be melted and evaluated before being sold. However, this came at a cost.
If you search assaying gold, it's one of the first images that Google will show for that search phrase, assaying gold. As well as that, it's an image that's been circulating on the internet since at least 2014. Long before you were talking to Michael, this image would have been in use, and we believe potentially by scammers.
It's part of the big lie from Michael all along.
Let's talk about the other gold image. We found this image in at least 43 other places online. That was a shock even for us.
Yeah.
It's time to reveal to Norman who the real person is in the photographs that he thought he was talking to all this time.
Norman, we looked through all the photos that you sent us of Michael, and we found a lot of dating profiles using those same photos. And of course, you can very clearly establish what I'm trying to say, which is that those photos are connected to a whole load of dating sites. You're not the only one falling for those photos, I'm so sorry to say it.
Yes.
And eventually we found our way to the real man in the photos.
Right.
His name isn't Michael, he isn't Canadian. In fact, this surprised us, and it may surprise you to know that he lives right here in the UK. We did reach out to this man, and we've spoken to him. He's very kindly agreed to help us work with the police to crack down on this.
I think it's very good of him.
But there's been more than one innocent person's photos used to dupe Norman.
I wish that was as far as it went, but it isn't.
Right.
You've been sent images of two different men. You were sent this photo,
Yeah.
supposedly of Michael.
Yeah.
This is a different man. We believe this man is actually Ryan Nix.
You thought this photo was taken where?
The Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Is that what Michael said to you?
Oh, yes. Because obviously, it's a world-known.
I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because it's actually the Leaning Tower of Niles in Illinois.
Right.
So even that was a dupe.
There's one final thing to do. Confront the man who stole over £50,000 from Norman.
I'm looking forward to this.
Hello?
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Liv. How are you?
It's Norman here. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I've got a couple of friends with me who would like to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Hi, Michael. My name's Kim, and I'm here with our friend Ashley John Baptiste. We'd just like to ask you a few questions, because we believe that Michael is a fake identity you've created as part of a scam, using photos that you found online.
There's nothing like that, I'm sorry.
You sure about that?
Yes, I'm very sure.
So you're also a liar as well, then?
Why are you talking to me like this?
Michael, we know that the gold images that you sent to Norman, you basically got off Google.
Why are you laughing?
Who are you? Please, I don't...
Who are
Who are you?
Who are you, mate? Who are you?
Why are you talking to me? I don't...
Because you've stolen money from an innocent man.
You're a thief.
I didn't. I never expected this from you, I'm telling the truth. Because what you're accusing me is wrong.
It's been proven to me that you are basically a downright liar.
Who proves to you?
We are from the BBC. We have spoken to a range of investigators and experts who have proven that everything you guys are saying are absolute lies. You are not saying anything real right now. You're just flat out denying everything. Oh.
There you go.
Even when we present him with the levels of evidence of where he has tried to dupe you, he still denies it and he makes himself the victim. You have been so brave in coming here, and I hope that we have been able to present you with the information you need to know everything you need to know and to move on.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for doing all the investigative sort of work on this and giving me some peace at the whole of this process. Thank you. Fantastic result, because it allowed me to go ahead and forget all about Michael Chambers and live my life, hopefully with somebody coming along later on in the day, but yeah, it'd be fantastic.
If you think you've been scammed in a similar way or been asked to send money to someone you're talking to online, then we'd like to hear from you. Email loveormoney@bbc.co.uk.
Renovating 2 apartments in Sicily, bought for €1 each. It's Amanda and Alan's Italian job, that's new at 8:30. And Lord Sugar's candidates are on a journey to a Caribbean island, in fact. Press red for The Apprentice, new on iPlayer. Now next, a mystery to solve on Homes Under the Hammer.